when we were here last week, Ren he mentioned this idea of a town hall meeting just so that citizens could keep themselves informed. And I thought I would help organize that if there's anybody here who's interested in it. The vision that we share is it being about, not just about being informed about what the town is doing for policies for us to help take care of our needs, but what we all can also do to take care of our own, how to be more connected, help each other, and maybe create a more sustainable city. For instance, maybe getting permission to grow food on some of the empty lots in town, find out who owns them and grow food. So if anybody is interested in participating in that, I have a sign-up sheet if it's okay to leave it right here. That's what I'm doing.
Thank you. I'd recommend also you get a hold of the Cayucos Advisory Council. They could probably point you in the right direction as well.
Yeah, I will.
Anybody else? Go ahead.
I haven't lived here as long as probably most of you, but I remember flows. I remember when we had a hardware store, and I used to dine with Carlin and Margaret Soule. So it's been a while, and I've seen some changes. To me, what we really need to look at is what defines a town. What's the difference between a town and a bunch of people living in the same area? And we've lost, I think, a lot of things in this town. The hardware store. I'm a gadget guy.
Yeah.
And I'm not rich. I mean, I squandered all my money on guitars and race cars, so I'm any additional cost I look at seriously. But to me, Howard Sanford knows that I have 2 cats and a dog that need saving. But someone from Morro Bay may not know that. And I'm familiar with a lot of the people that work in the Morro Bay Fire Department. I've taken CERT training there. They're competent, responsible, capable people. But they're not in this town. And to me, that's a big issue. And it's an emotional argument. It's not a fiscal, monetary argument. But to me, that's really, really important, and that's really priceless.
Great, thank you. Anybody else?
Yeah, I'd like to sort of echo what Jeff said. I think that a lot of concerns people have been raising are, what about the cost of this fire thing? I mean, that's just expensive. And so I think you have to really look and say, well, what is the cost of not having your fire chief a street over, or having people that truly, as Jeff said, I know he had 2 cats, but they know where the kids are, and they take steps to really not only just respond to you in emergencies, but proactively look at what they can do before emergencies happen. So if somebody's declining, or somebody's sick, or somebody has a propensity for wandering off, they probably know about that. And we do hear a lot about costs, but like Jeff said, maybe some of our priorities are a little skewed when we're willing to spend $300,000 or $400,000 for a pier, $100 a month for a sewer. It's $3 a flush for me. And water rates are going up. And well, there's nothing I can do about that. I'll kick and scream before I'll let go of my fire department, because they're the only people I feel that truly are there for me. And yeah, they do it because they're paid call responders, but I think that a lot of them do it because they're really decent people and neighbors and have been here for as long as I have.
Thank you.
Hi, Cindy Walton. I would agree with Jeff and Richard, and I would just like to add that I hope that this is really looked at all the possible options, and if that takes some extra time, we do that. For example, if it goes to county fire, I think, or I may not be saying that right, but if it goes to a state-run or a government agency, I want us to really think about what kind of coverage we're going to get, because I've heard it mentioned a few times from the inception of this that we'll get a level of professional coverage. I think we really need to define what level of professional coverage is. Is that someone in town always, or when they can get someone here? And I think we also need to be concerned about what happens to the department if it goes away and it's not locally run, or that building. I, for one, don't want to see the county take over that building without a lot of our say. So I just hope that we really look at all the options, and we take the time to really see what's best for everybody. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Hi, my name is Ren Strong, and Amanda, she's a soil scientist, soil harmonics. I'm the one who, if you got a notice before, I'm the one who, well, Amanda and I both did, and I got to do some more today. So forgive me if I'm always about honoring everyone when we're in this time of some real change that needs to happen in our country and in our town. I'm for the fire departments, I'm for the police, I'm for every service that there is. I just wonder, are we depending on these infrastructures of depending on waiting for a savior to come, waiting for that to happen, or something to happen for the rescue to happen? When I know that there's a couple of situations that occurred, we came to the rescue. So are we prepared? Are we waiting and paying folks? And I'm all for all of us being able to live here, that choose to live here and have made their way here and will continue to and go however that is. But to prepare the citizens, to prepare to be citizens of, they know how to take care of themselves, they know their neighbors, and they know how to collaborate, cooperate together, not staying divided, which this country was founded on taking and conquering and colonizing. And as a Blackfoot, Indian, French, German, English, as a migrant of this world, I was born in LA, but I'm a protector, a water protector. I'm a life protector, air, water, which brings me to this last part. Again, I want a stewardship program. I want a collaborative cooperation of how to get the youth involved, there's life that can be grown on this that is old conventional ways that doesn't apply, but there's new ways that actually are old ancient ways that were missed because of colonizing. So ancient ways of the indigenous people took care of these lands for a long time. So the last thing, public comment, is the air. I'm the one who put those signs up for the climate geoengineering. Don't look up chemtrails, look up climate geoengineering. If you look up chemtrails, it'll say hoax or conspiracy. This is really happening. We are being poisoned by corporate government, and the awareness of it needs to come out, and we don't need to be blind from it. We need to stand up and speak our truth. Our ancestors are rooting on all of us to come together on this, and I've been speaking this. I'm 46 years young. Today is my son's 28th birthday, and I'm not with my kids. I never fought for this country. I fight for it with education and telling people that there is a better way, and also what the injustices and corruption that's going on. So I'm here to support all of you. We need to turn those that have decided to do things and just to continue to do status quo is no more. We need to stop this. We need to, and there's solutions to these things, and bringing the people together. So no climate engineering. Look up climategeoengineeringwatch.org. You can get all the information you want. But again, that's why we're having a town hall meeting. So like that's what's being raised. If you looked at the New Jersey one, I'm almost at New Jersey town hall meeting. There was a big thing of saying we don't want to take it out on you guys. We want to have solutions. So thank you for hearing me, and I know I went really far, but this is a really important time, and I don't know when I'm going to get this other opportunity until the next time. So bless you all, and our ancestors are rooting us on. And thank you for all of you do.
Thank you.
In the interest of time, because I think we have to vacate this room at 5:45 because the library closes at 6. the main thrust of this, the motion was made last time to have David Church, so could we have him do his presentation? I would still like to hear comment if there is some, but the whole reason was to have him present, so could we? Okay.
Yeah, let's finish up the public comment and I'll work on that.
Okay, I think we all pay enough property tax, and I think the first thing the government should do for us is pay for our police and fire protection. So where's Bruce Gibson in this? I mean, the assessed value of the property in this community is over $1 billion. You take 1% of that and pay property tax on the billion, and you take 1% of that, where's the money that's flowing back to this community to pay for these services? Why do we need to tax ourselves? I think that's wrong. I don't care what anybody says. C-12 was a big mistake because the previous board lied to everybody about the Ahmadine protocols. And they turned around and took the money and it's in their budget now. It should be, that C-12 should be rescinded. That's all I have to say.
Okay, thank you. No more, we'll move on. I'll entertain a motion, Carrie, to move new business in front of old business.
So moved.
Second? Okay. With that, we'll go with approving the minutes from our last meeting. They've been distributed. Are there any corrections?
I move that we approve the
Corrections?
minutes from the last meeting.
They're approved. Okay, new business. David Church from LAFCO. You're up.
I'm up. Okay, after that. Hi, I'm David Church. I'm with LAFCO, and how many people know that you have a LAFCO in the county?
I want to define what it is.
Yeah, I know. Local Agency Formation Commission. Big name. What we do is we annex properties to cities and districts. We form cities and districts, incorporate cities and inform districts. We dissolve districts. We also incorporate cities or we disincorporate a city. The commission's made up of 7 elected officials and 2 board of supervisors members, 2 members from city councils, 2 members from special districts, and a public member. And those 7 make decisions about that throughout the county. So whenever any district or any city wants to do some kind of change to their boundaries or add a property, they come to LAFCO, and that's what happens. In this case, Cayucos Fire District is probing and exploring, and has been for a couple of years now, possibility of dissolution and possibility of changing how fire service is done here in Cayucos. And of course, that's not something anybody takes lightly because your fire department is your fire department. But numbers and the way the finances are looking right now are also on the table and something that you have to really take a hard look at. And apparently that's where they're at. The reviews that we've done with regard to the fire district do show there's definitely a revenue problem and there's definitely an expenditure problem. And that has to do with the expenses getting more over time and revenues basically staying pretty stable. So that's not sustainable over a long period of time. Now, I know you guys probably been through the 218 process and went through that once the last time through, and the 218 process is the effort to raise taxes. And so that didn't fly the last time through. That was actually proposed by the fire district. So that's why they're considering again the possibility of dissolution. And there's another option, and that is called consolidation. And consolidation is where a district is consolidated with another district. And in this case, the other district would be CSA or County Service Area 10. And that's the district that is in Cayucos that actually provides water treatment services for the town. Street lighting maybe 2. I have to check on that. All right. Okay. Street lighting 2. What you would do in that case is you would add the fire authority to the CSA, and you would dissolve the district, the fire protection district, and CSA 10 would take that firepower. They would probably contract with CAL FIRE or the county fire department, and that would be providing the fire service in the end. that's consolidation. If, the value of consolidation is that if you can get the county to agree to consolidation and the district agrees to consolidation, then LAFCO is required to approve the consolidation. So it basically tells LAFCO, okay, we've got everybody on board, and LAFCO, you have to approve this. Now, LAFCO can add some conditions of approval. So that's where LAFCO still has some authority over the decision that gets made. With dissolution, when you have dissolution happen, LAFCO still has authority to say yes or no to dissolution. Consolidation essentially takes away that decision from LAFCO if you have both agencies on the same page. I mean, actually preparing the same resolution, each agency considering each resolution and then approving it. So you can move forward with consolidation. The upside to dissolution is dissolution is a straightforward process. There is a agencies, CAL FIRE or County Fire Department in the area that can pick up the services. Dissolution can happen relatively in a relatively I don't want to say fast, but a relatively nominal manner in terms of 3 to 6 months, depending upon how this all goes for the community, because there's a lot of people I'm sensing that don't want the district to go away. So that's part of the deal as well, and that's something for the community to wrestle with. LAFCO, in terms of if the district can fund itself, if the district can survive, if the district can move on with services, that's fine, and that's up to the community as well. That's a decision you can make. But that is something that so far the community has not been willing to come forward with the 218 money or the money to actually fund those services. And so the unsustainability of the district's current situation, and that's what's going to keep, I think, coming up. And maybe that's what you're going to talk about later with some of the numbers I saw hanging around, because they go over time. And that talks about over time how much the costs are going to be. And so LAFCO's not here to say, yes, dissolution is great, or consolidation is great. This is great, because this is clearly really a lousy situation for the community to be in. And so none of the decisions are great at this point. I'm merely here to outline the processes by which you can go about it. And if the community does decide to go forward with it, then there is a process. LAFCO goes through public hearings to consider either dissolution or consolidation. We then go through the process of making that decision. During that process, it would be laid out who's going to be providing that service, CAL FIRE, County Fire, what levels of service would be provided. So that would also be on the table as well for the commission and for the public to talk about. And then we move forward with the decision of dissolution. There is a protest process at the end, and the protest process allows the community to protest LAFCO's decision. And if there are less than 25% of the registered voters protesting it, then you basically have the dissolution or consolidation approved. If you have between 25% and less than 50% of the registered voters protesting it, then it goes to a vote of all the people in the town. If over 50% of the registered voters protest LAFCO's action, it terminates. So then the dissolution would not, or consolidation would not happen. That's the protest process. We send out notifications to all the registered voters in the town, actually in the district's boundary, and then we get people to submit those protests, and we count them up, and there we go.
Who pays for that?
That's part of the LAFCO process, the protest process.
Is that a petition process, or is it something that's sent out and people need to then mail back in?
Second. Yeah, we'll send out actually a protest form.
Mm-hmm.
And so the protest form goes out to everybody and all the registered voters. We get a registered voter list from the county clerk, send it out to all the registered voters within the community. and then you have an opportunity to fill out your protest and submit it to LAFCO.
So this is registered voters, not property owners, right?
Correct, but property owners also get to protest, so they could. But in this case, it's a registered voter district, and the registered voters are gonna be the ones who carry the day, if you will, in the town. So landowners will get a protest as a landowner, then we'll ask, are you a registered voter or a landowner? And they'll be able to do a vote. But if they're registered voters in the area, to me, that's the ones that carry the vote. In fact, that is what happens. That's the protest process. I have, let's see here, I don't think we have 20, we have more than 20, huh? I think so. But this lays out the process for y'all, and,
Just back to that,
We just need one.
if we consolidate though, there's no other revenue stream to help us.
correct.
We still have to pass and everybody has to cough up $500 or $600 or whatever that is determined to be.
Well, if you consolidate, the only thing that does, it gives you CSA 10 becomes the administrative shell that will then manage the money, and then the CAL FIRE would then become the service agency through that contract between the county. And then dissolution effectively does the same thing, where the money would be transferred to the county, and then the county would then allocate that money to CAL FIRE, or whoever is the response agency, which would probably be CAL FIRE or County Fire, whichever one you want to call it. But it'd be the same type of thing. So there's not a huge functional difference between the two. The CSA 10 for administrative purposes, it does give you a boundary that's very, very similar to the fire district boundary. And then you're able to actually get the property taxes a little easier function in terms of collecting the money and that kind of thing. However, it doesn't have to be that way. A dissolution, actually, you can do the same thing, and the county can actually set that up as well.
If CSA 10 becomes a successor agency, is the county required to or voluntarily allocate more property tax dollars to fund the service?
They're not required to, but they can, if they choose to. The level of service provided is a discretionary. The county can make that decision if they want to, or if they don't want to, depending upon the Board of Supervisors and if you can get 3 votes. And so, if you can get 3 votes to fund an additional service, then that happens. They just did it with the groundwater management stuff that's going on in the North County, where they decided to pick up the tab for doing groundwater management planning up in the North County. So the board actually approved that, and they're doing that at this point with general fund money. So, and flood control district money. So there's a combination.
With a consolidation, do the assets automatically go to the county? Or can there be a negotiation between the fire district and the county with respect to keeping those assets within CSA District 10? So there's not an automatic
Right.
transfer of the asset.
No, there's with either one, dissolution or with consolidation, there's a negotiation that goes on. So let's say the county said, "Oh, we'll let you keep your firehouse, but somebody's got to take care of it." You could make that as something you talk about, but you could make that a condition of approval. But it has to be agreement between the county and between the district. Essentially, it would be the district who would be negotiating that with regard to dissolution. But that can happen with dissolution or with CSA 10, either one. With CSA 10, what you're just getting is that administrative shell. You're not gaining a ton, and you get some ability to manage things a little bit more cleanly, I guess, is the idea.
And you also have the ability to have a citizens advisory committee kind of overseeing, looking at what the board of supervisors is doing in terms of the management of CSA.
You could have that, yeah. In fact, well, my town, Santa Margarita, we have Santa Margarita CSA 23. CSA 23 provides water, it provides street lighting, drainage, and they have an advisory committee that advises the county on what the community's thinking about those services in terms of water rates. For example, they just went through that and raised our water rates as well. So that's happening all over the place. But yeah, you could have an advisory committee if it was set up like that.
So there's currently, CSA 10 is that the entity that handles the water in the southern part of Cayucos?
Correct.
The
Yeah.
water company.
Okay, question. For CSA 10, can they impose a fire fee as opposed to a tax?
Only if they go through a 218 process, a fee or a tax. Either one of those would have to be voted on by the community before they could increase
So they
their.
can't do a fee for service for fire, such as water?
Well, even water, you're still having to do a 218 as far as I know.
It's a
If they can,
different type where you gotta vote no,
Landowner type is what you're talking about. Yeah.
whatever they call it, yeah.
There's
So if
that.
you don't vote, you're a yes.
Right, that's a protest process, yeah, exactly, and that's a little different. I don't know that they could do that, but that depends on the type of service that's being provided. Typically, what I've seen throughout the state is you usually have fire is funded by a special tax that requires 2/3 vote. That's often happened in other places around the state, and a lot of the emergency response, a lot of the fire taxes have passed in many other places. But you're right, there is another. That's more of a
I believe there are
landowner
fees
fee.
out there that do get fire assessed fee to their CSA.
What's that?
I believe there are other fire agencies out there that get a fire fee to their CSA.
Do they?
Yeah.
That may
Which
happen.
doesn't
yeah.
require a vote, they just apply a fee.
Yeah. I'd say it might be a property owner, the property owner kind of address, but that would be a protest vote to the property. I haven't heard that about anywhere in this county. So it may be one that was applied in a CSA a long time ago, before there was the 218 kind of process as well. So that might, they may be getting a share of the property tax, that would, don't know. But interested in hearing about where they do that, because that might be an option to look at.
Great. Any other questions?
Beyond acting as kind of the overseers of like the CSA District 10, what obligations do the Board of Supervisors have? Can they set the service levels, but they don't necessarily set the funding?
They do. They would establish the budget for the CSA every year in their budget process. They would use the funds that are currently available for the services that are provided right now to fund the fire services. So they would do that. They could say, okay, we need more funding to provide this level of service, so they could do a 218 to then establish that. The county, essentially what happens is the county board of supervisors becomes your governing body, as opposed to the fire protection district governing body right now. And so the board of supervisors becomes that governing body. They would make the decisions in regard to CSA 10, or in regard to if there was a dissolution.
Yeah. There is no way that they can unilaterally put through an increase in or a special fire tax.
Not these days, and not that I've heard. No. 218, Prop 218 is part of the Constitution. It was put in place to protect, frankly, the taxpayers. It's called the not to increase taxes, I think, act, without the voters' approval. So it was part of Prop 213, Prop 13, and it filled that hole because people were getting around it by actually taxing and not asking people about the taxes. So 218 was plugged into the Constitution of California to plug that hole, and trying to go forward and raise taxes without that is pretty much illegal. And
but they can lower the service level, right? They can lower the service level to be commensurate with whatever funds they do have.
Correct.
So if we only have funding for one engine or two firefighters, that's the way it is, right?
They set that level in terms of service levels. Yeah, they would. So that would be up to them in working through that. And part of the LAFCO process would be where you're going to have to look at that question, because the commission would want to know, well, what levels of services are they going to get as they make their decision as well. So putting that on the table is an important thing for people to go forward.
So would that level of service be known before the protest period? So if it was too low, people could protest if they so chose?
I hope so. Yeah, that would be the goal. The goal, right. Because otherwise, if you don't know, what are you voting on?
That's
right.
So then So then let's say they, hypothetically, we get the level 2.0 that we've been talking about for the other options, and that gets approved, and then could they go, oh, just kidding, and then change it later?
They could.
What would it take for them to do that?
3 votes next year at the budget time.
3 votes
by the Board of Supervisors. Yeah, it's the Board of Supervisors becomes your governing body, and they make decisions then about service levels. And you could write it. You could write a condition: the service level shall be X.
For X number of years, or
you could, but the question becomes, and this is part of the legal deal, is you're not necessarily, you don't bind future boards. You're not able to bind a future board with some kind of law or some kind of something that leaves them without that flexibility or discretion. So I don't know if it would apply in this case, but the board becomes your decision maker in that regard, and in regard to the levels of service, for sure. Just like right now, the Fire District Board is the decision maker about levels of service and about budget. All of that just transfers on to the Board of Supervisors, over to them.
Does LAFCO, though, take one higher step, though, too, and say, well, let's look at the kind of structures that are being built and the level of service, and these people are just not safe anymore?
Well, there is a minimum state standards, 2.0 being one of them, that the county can't supersede a state law, rule, or regulation. It's not going to happen. Can't happen.
Thank you.
You said it's one of the levels. What's the lowest level out there that we could potentially have?
2.0 is the minimum standard for a truck, and that's what they run throughout the county.
But they get called out to other places, and even though it's a must-cover station, it's still unmanned for a certain period of time.
Yeah, depending on if there's a contract in place where you're guaranteed dedicated service for a contract, or if there's an Amador contract in place, there's no guaranteed during an Amador contract. 2 different things you got to look at: Amador contract and a 2.0 contract.
So Amador contract.
Yeah.
Amador contract is what the fire department used to do here, or they contract during non-fire season through CAL FIRE to respond to emergencies in town. Just during non-fire season.
That's what, November to May?
Jeff, do you know what those days are now?
It varies on fire season. But getting back to levels of staffing, NFPA 1710 is set by levels of staffing that's set by the AHJ, which is Authority Having Jurisdiction. So it can be 1.0, it can be DCF, it can be 2.0, it can be 3.0. It all depends who the AHJ is at that time. Right now, it's the board members, and it could be the Authority Having Jurisdiction, which would be right now the fire commissioners, and went over to the county, then the county would be the AHJ saying, I want it to be 1.0, 2.0, 3.0. They would set the levels of staffing.
So we're not guaranteed 2-0 is basically what I'm hearing. And if,
Guaranteeing adequate, they're not guaranteeing 24/7.
well, and to me, it's not adequate if Cal Fire goes somewhere else in the state and we're not covered. That's not adequate.
They're coming.
It's never
And-
adequate if you're the one who has the emergency either. If it's your family member or your fire or
So,
somebody's fire on the freeway that the guys put out so quickly.
Or your mother who falls down the stairs.
Or your mother who falls down the stairs.
Go ahead.
so I have just a little working knowledge of fire because my husband was a captain volunteer for years and years. So help me out, please. There's something that your neighboring town, it's if everybody was out, they would assist. There's a term for
There's an
that.
automatic aid and a mutual aid.
Okay, so is that something that the county might think is adequate for us if Cal Fire went out on a call? Could the county, and this is just hypothetical, something to think about that all of you might not be aware of, that the county might think that Morro Bay could be automatic aid. Do you think that's something that, I mean, I know I'm just,
They always have that regardless of whatever contract you may have in, a contract for service or an Amador contract. You're always gonna have that in place as the backup to bump and to fill, because nobody recognizes more than one call at a time. That's just the way it is. So you want as much help as you possibly can.
so it's just something to think about, that they could possibly think that's enough for us, that Morro Bay could come to our rescue, but keep in mind, Morro Bay is maybe 4 minutes, 5 minutes?
No, Morro Bay responds within 6 to 7 minutes within Morro Bay.
Okay,
They
but
told me that.
best
I
case
asked.
scenario, if they were in the right location, they could get here, but who wants to bank on a choking victim to what their speed is?
No, I'm saying
So-
that's in Morro Bay. To get here, we're talking another 10 minutes.
I know, but sometimes it's faster, Richard, but I get what you're saying. So yeah, I was being,
You're being generous.
yes, okay, instead
I'm
of
saying 15
exaggerating.
minutes.
So it's just something to think about, that's something the county could say is good enough for y'all.
David, at what point in the future could the county come in, and because of the escalating costs with the contract with Cal Fire, to institute a countywide fire tax, create basically a county fire district for all the unincorporated areas? Would they have to go before a Prop 218 thing to do that?
My view, yes, absolutely. That's a huge, it would be a huge increase in tax, it would be a huge, prospect for all the voters and all the landowners in the area, so I would say, yeah, that's an increase in tax that would have to go through the 218 process. There are other communities struggling with this. Templeton, they have a CSD, they have a community services district. They're struggling with the costs of fire service, and so they're looking for help as well. How do they crack this nut? Because the costs continue to go up, but the revenues continue to be more stable, more flat. And so it's not, that's just doesn't work. But at some point, you become upside down on the finance. Yeah.
Why would they be flat? Because Templeton grows and they get a 2% increase on property tax every year. Why is it flat?
It's not flat, but it doesn't grow in the same proportion as their expenses are growing every time, for example. And so they're still getting their bump in the value of property, if property values are going up. And we assume
they're building too.
And there are
Temple's
some
a lot of building.
Last 6 years, the contract with Cal Fire has gone up an average of 6% a year. This year that's just coming up for 17-18 is gonna go up 6.5. And as Russ and Joe pointed out in their option 2 report, we're looking at a 7.5% increase in salaries for 18, an additional 7% spread through 2019 and 20, and an 8.5% increase in staff benefits. So I don't care, you can get 2% increase in your revenues every year, but 2% growth in revenue and 7 and 8% in costs, because your lines go like that very quickly.
Well, then you need to learn to say no to benefits.
Well, and that's part of the problem is we have no say. We have no say what the Cal Fire contract did, just got approved. If we've got our own district, we have a say over what's going on with the cost.
The key is sustainability, and being able to sustain service with the resources you have. And if that cannot be done, you either increase the resources by taxing yourselves more and funding the district, or you look at other options like dissolution or consolidation, as distasteful as those are.
Does the Cayucos Fire District currently get a percentage or the allocation of property taxes? Is it consistent with the other communities in our area? Is that the same? Or we?
Don't know.
The fire tax is consistently the same. However, we pay what's called a special fire tax, which is above and beyond that. And that's why you get a fire tax, which is through your property taxes. And we and 2 other places in town pay a special fire tax above and beyond that.
But that percentage differs because like Templeton gets about $900,000 a year in property tax and we get about 260.
Because there's more homes in their town.
Granted, but there's a percentage that's applied.
Yes.
And it's a pretty complicated formula that the county has. It's based on your growth relative to the rest of the county. So if Cayucos is growing slower than other parts of the county, the other areas that are growing faster are going to get an increasing percentage of the property tax revenue. As you know, Cayucos is bounded on the west by water, and there's not a lot of lots left, so growth is pretty limited. So it would seem logical that the percentage that we're going to get is probably going to still stay fairly low.
That doesn't change with reassessments and.
It goes up a little bit. It goes up a little bit. Certainly, if every house turned over in Cayucos to market value now, immediately, yeah, it'd be a big windfall.
Yeah.
But I don't think that's going to happen.
And it's strictly on the tax is strictly on the landowner, the property owner. It's their taxes. It doesn't go to residents like who are just living here in rentals, or there's no tax in the water or the sewer or.
No, it's straight up property.
Straight up property. So there's your vote right there. You don't get, because most of the property owners that live here or that own property here don't live here, so they don't vote here, right?
All right.
That's where you need to find.
Darren has heard this now 4 times. He's heard me talk about it 4 times, I think. And Darren, was I pretty consistent?
You were.
Okay.
I'm not going to critique you, but I would like to educate everybody in the room about the other options and everything that we have.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
Thank you. One last thing on that. So I know we have Donald Trump in the, sorry to bring his name up, or whatever, or whoever. But Bernie brought it up as the elites. You know, where I don't know about you guys, but I don't know how many in this make 200,000 plus a year. But where is our accountability to the elite corporations that, you know, we the people have been working for however long enslaved to their system, working 9 to 5s and such? When do we hold them accountable and for them to pay? Because for us all to be struggling like this is ridiculous. So I'm speaking on behalf of you, the people that don't speak this stuff, so I'm speaking it. And because we don't need, this is all distraction, just like the climate engineering, that's spraying aluminum and burying them in the air. It's all distraction, make us sick for the profits of the elite. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Okay, thanks, David.
Thanks, Darren.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks, you guys. Yeah, pleasure. Call LAFCO if you want to, LAFCO.com. Go see who we are and give me a call.
Thank you for having me.
All right, pleasure.
Okay.
Give us some options. Let's go.
Continuing on here, some of you haven't been to some of our other meetings that we've had here, and we were simply tasked with getting dollar figures for the 3 options that the fire commissioners wanted us to get to. One of them was a proposed cost for fire protection for Cayucos Fire Protection District to provide the 2.0 service to the town, which is 24/7 career firefighters, EMT or better. And the cost, correct me if I'm wrong on that one, was $1,437,000. No, $1,437,000.
Yes.
Okay, good. The second proposed one that we had was to get some dollar figures with the same criterias to get a contract with CAL FIRE directly to provide that same type of service. And once again, correct me if I'm wrong, that came to $1,280,000.
For the personnel, and then operating expenses coming out of Cayucos' budget, bumped it to 1.435.
Okay, so obviously you got a contract with CAL FIRE for 1.280, and you still have to maintain the equipment and everything else, correct?
Correct.
Okay. The third option that they wanted us to look at was same deal, pros cost of turnover to the county, for the county to provide the 24/7 career firefighters, EMT or better, and that came in at $550,000. So those are the three numbers that we have to present to the board. Now,
What was included in that 550,000?
that was the full run the fire department with 24/7 full-time fire departments with the EMT or better.
And that's from the county?
The county would do that, correct?
So that's like if they don't leave to go on another call, or if they do leave, there's somebody always there.
It's a dedicated service, correct? Similar to Los Osos.
And that's what they have now, Los Osos?
Yes, but they also have a reserve program on top of that, and I can't speak for the whole operation, but they do have a minimum 2 down there.
It also includes all the assets, which includes the fire station and building.
Yeah, but with that 550, just like there was costs associated with contracting, you would also have to give up the fire station to the county, along with all the assets of the truck would have to go to the county. And they anticipate trying to use it as a fire station, if not some type of youth center or something, but the community would have the input on that if it went down that path.
Are those first year only prices, or they go up from there, or is that the set price for 10 years, 15 years? They put a number of those prices?
That for the county one, if you're referring to the county one, that's a fixed rate. They can't increase that unless they increase the taxes. But contracting with CAL FIRE, yes, those rates would go up every year. And the same thing with trying to do it 2.0 themselves. You know, those costs are going to go up, but I think they'll have enough. There was enough padding in that one that I saw you put together.
That was a 10-year number?
It depends on whether you believe the county's gonna pay $1.1 million or $1.2 million per service, regardless. It might only cost Cayucos directly $550, but there's no free lunch. They are gonna pay it, maybe, or they more likely they can downgrade service. It's not a free lunch. That's why I asked David about the potential for a county-wide fire tax, and I think that's a realistic option for the county, because as we talked about, the contract has gone up at a 6% rate for the last 6 or 7 years. We've got numbers. While it is not a firm proposal, it's just kind of a rough cost estimate. We do know that the salaries are going up 7.5% in 18 for CAL FIRE. You have to ask yourself, at what point does the county say enough is enough and everybody's got to pay a little more for their fire service? We can't absorb a 7 or 8% increase, or 6 or 8, whatever the percentage is, but it's going to be more than 0 every year. Adding Cayucos on will add, at a minimum, $600,000 to the cost of their overall contract, which for the upcoming year is a little over $19 million. So that's like, what, 5%? But it's going to continue to go up. And
I think
while they cannot single Cayucos out, that's why it'll have to be a countywide tax. But at some point, it'll probably happen. And if you're turning over the building, you do have a building that's worth, by Darren's estimation, I shouldn't say by Darren's estimation.
Ours.
As a committee.
Ours as a committee.
As a committee, but he spoke with some realtors and he got a rough estimate of the value of the building of $1.2 million, or $1.1 million, nominal amount of equipment. We're giving that building up. That building has value, so you have to figure that into the situation as well. Even though we may have the use of it, the county may grant us the use of it, we do not own it. So it's similar to somebody coming to you and saying, you can live in your house, I'll pay for all your expenses, everything. And you go, well, that's great. I can live in my house and everything will be the same. And that's forever. Well, no, it's not forever. But I'll do my best.
The only difference though with that is that the rest of the county doesn't pay the special fire tax we do. So I mean, that's, just want to throw that out there regardless, no matter which way you look at it. You know, we pay a special fire tax, the rest of the county doesn't. So if they want to go and raise the special fire tax to the county in whole, they better bring it up to us. Otherwise it's, you know, we're the highest paid special fire tax in the county.
But they're not required to bring it up to us, they could just say thank you, right? I mean, we're not big enough to vote.
No, it would be a countywide vote if they ever did raise create a special fire tax to the county of San Luis Obispo.
So at some point when we're starting to consider what it's really gonna cost us in terms of property tax, could somebody at some point, because we talk about 500,000, which sounds, gosh, that's a third of what the Fire Protection District in Cayucos could do. But if you look at the amount of money that we're currently paying and the amount that's proposed or was proposed and voted down, you know, we're kind of comparing apples and oranges, because if they're going to raise a countywide tax, and that's likely to occur, you could project what would possibly that be, and then compare that to what you're asking us to vote on here, so that you have an idea of saying, okay, well, if, you know, because there's a good likelihood that we're going to end up paying the same amount to downgrade our service and move it over to the county as, you know, as we would to keep our current fire district and fund it. It's just that it's not actually talked about in those equal terms, it seems to be.
Darren, we need to honor the library's time.
Yeah,
She
we'll
has
be
to be
good.
out of here at 6.
Okay.
Run home and get the key and walk up.
Okay, so
I
real
don't-
quick,
I mean, I do have.
real quick here, those were the numbers that we were asked to get from this committee. We went above and beyond and we were able to come up with some additional options. And there's 2 more options that John would like to present here real quick.
Very quickly. First option is option 3, which is using kind of a hybrid model.
John, it'd be easier to set option 4 because they gave us 3 options. You know what I mean? So don't have the same number.
All right.
Okay, yeah.
All right. So we'll call it option 3. Using a combination of career and reserve firefighters would require an increase in the fire assessment tax, by my estimation, up to $350 from the current level to fund this level of service. This would get you a paid fire chief, 3 paid captains, and a secretary. It would include benefits, PERS for the paid people, as well as other benefits. And then we would also augment that with reserve firefighters, very much like we're doing now, using the stipend system. Where you'd have 1 firefighter and a captain on each 12-hour shift. Under that model, you're starting off with revenues of about $1,150,000. You generate surpluses over the next 15 years. First 3 years would see your biggest levels of surplus. But it appears to be a viable approach. And it's a combination. It's not full-blown, full career, but it does look like it's possible. And I've got overtime pay increases. I have career increases for 5 years at 5%, after that, 3% a year, operating expenses increasing 3% a year, etc. I have the fire tax going up 3% annually by the CPI, and property tax revenues up 2%. If you haven't seen a copy of this, I do have some extra copies up here. The second option is basically maintaining the current operating model and also increasing the fire tax from the present $100, $105 level up to $170. You're starting off with revenues of under $700,000 and generate small surpluses of between $3,000 and $50,000 a year before you eventually go into a deficit in year 10. This is based on a paid fire chief, 2 paid captains, an assistant chief, and 2 duty officers. The fire chief and the captains would receive a small salary, plus be required to work a minimum number of shifts. In the case of the captains, 15 12-hour shifts a month at $75 a shift, plus a paid salary of like $1,100 a month. Assistant chief, $1,750 a month, 10 12-hour shifts. The chief, $3,000 a month, plus he has to do 12-hour shifts. Then we have duty officers to help cover. Those people will be working from home. And then we have the reserve firefighters, where you'd have 1 firefighter, a captain, and or a chief on that second shift, and 2 firefighters on the other shift. So this is a pretty stripped down approach in terms of costs, because you're still basically using part-time people in terms of chiefs, etc. They're not being paid anywhere close to a full career salary or benefits, but it would be a way to have an keeping the existing department running at basically the same model. And hopefully, you might be able to increase the pay a little bit to attract people. The people that seem to be the toughest ones to get are the captains and the people who drive the trucks. So those are the other approaches, along with one of the approaches that I need to get some additional information from Russ and Joe on, was just basically keeping the district alive, ceasing all active operations, but just being the funding mechanism, leaving CAL FIRE to run it during the fire season with their operation down at Station 11, and then running an Amador agreement 2.0 for the fire season. That's very, very bare bones coverage. But under that model, you could still generate a small surplus for probably 8 to 10 years. And that would not require turning over the fire station. They would just continue to operate out of Station 11 down in the south end of town, if they're agreeable to it.
But obviously that needs to be logistically, it has to work. I mean, they would be the only ones that know if that's even feasible, both operationally and budgetary.
Right. But based off of the contracts that we had just come out of, that's why I was very curious to find out the breakdown from Joe and Russ in terms of that 1.2 million between the 6 fire positions and the tech position. If the chief was able to give you any kind of a breakdown on that.
He was not.
No, he wasn't. Basically, he did say that the costs were based on top step salaries, project overtime, benefits, PD, and so forth. And that it's most likely the actual cost would be slightly lower. That is his quote.
Okay. Slightly lower than the 1.2.
Yes. And it's all on, and I included the email which he gave me that information and explained why he didn't do the breakdown.
Doesn't the CAL FIRE fire season coincide with when they're going to be gone, our highest increase in visitor population? I mean, fire season starts about now and ends in October, and that's when we have the highest influx of people, especially during 4th of July. 30,000 people here, and to be on an Amador agreement, I don't know.
Darren, we need to go. I mean, I don't mean to cut this short, but we agreed that we'd be out of here by 6. It's not fair to make the librarian stay
That's fine.
because
Now,
the volunteer. I
you
mean,
guys, do you want to hear a motion for anything? What do we want to do here? I mean, I've got the numbers we need to present.
I'd like to move to present our various proposed costs, options to the Fire Protection Board at the June 1st meeting.
I second.
does that include the ones that John just talked about too?
Yes, that will include, it'll be on or before the June 1st meeting.
How can it be before the June 1st meeting?
If they have if they request a special meeting, I don't know, on or before, we'll guarantee get there. But it'll include those 3 numbers given, and it'll also include the 3 options that was also given. The one you gave originally.
LAFCO then?
The one you gave.
I actually gave you 4.
Okay, 3, yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Three
The
others.
The 3 others plus the 1, correct. Okay, vote.
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
No.
No.
No? Okay. It passed. We'll vote.
That's a good bit of no.
Thank you for coming, you guys.
All right.